Welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda, talk about the survival skills fair. So I'm going to show you what they look like. Hopefully encourage you to think about putting one on in your community. Really trying to push the outreach events as we get closer to the time when we can actually have them. A little bit about engaging hams in your area, the next GMRS test, National Night Out, and then preparedness classes that are coming up. We're going to go through the Urban Survival Skills Fair relatively quickly. We wrote a grant for several years ago. It was either 2017 or 2018. All the skills that you need to survive in an urban setting, not a wilderness setting, puts them into separate tables, separate stations. So you break it up and you educate the public about what they need to do, and you get them excited and thinking about preparedness. The goal is to reduce demand. The more folks that know what they're doing and are prepared for a disaster, the less painful our jobs will be as hub volunteers. This system is very scalable. You can do one table, one station, or you can do all 17 stations. It really just depends on what you have the bandwidth for. It's built on an Army mentality. I purposely used the Army stencil font to evoke that feeling of being in the Army and being skilled. This is the first one we did. It happened to be in my neighborhood. There are 7 tents on either side of the road. We closed down the street for this event. And then we had 1 or 2 volunteers behind each table, and they talked about their little area of the skills fair. So we got a grant. The grant paid for banners, tablecloths, handouts, and some of the props. There are 17 topics now. We started with 14, but we've expanded to 17. Each of these stations has talking points. So the volunteer standing behind the table knows what they're supposed to be saying. And we send that out and educate folks ahead of time so they feel less nervous about what's going on at their station, and they're able to answer questions and feel fairly confident. Many of the stations have a video. And I think that's very helpful to help folks kind of practice their little elevator pitch. 17 stations. We're just going to go through them in alphabetical order. Ham radio, amateur radio. Here's 2 of our lovely volunteers. Self-explanatory. You're not going to run this table unless you are a ham. Communication. This is a really good one. We talk about phones and how you can't rely on them. We talk about the out-of-town contact person and how that's useful after a disaster. There's a crank radio at that station. We let people practice cranking the radio in order to charge up their phone. The next station is emergency hacks. Cindy's been very helpful in gathering these and documenting these. So we show people what some of these emergency hacks are. And we also ask them what their emergency hacks might be. Emergency toilet, do a lot of education about emergency toilets and how they operate. First aid, obviously you're going to have somebody there knowledgeable about first aid, and we have some props to go with that station. Food, we have quite a bit of fake food. So you just get the conversation going about what kinds of foods would be really good to store for after a disaster. And one of the really helpful things at the station is a piece of paper and ask your community members what foods they have tucked away. And there's always interesting things that they write down. And it's just very fun and interactive for them. Heading home. This is the station that teaches about what you should tuck away somewhere, whether it's in your glove box, the trunk of your car, underneath your desk at work, in your commuter bag, backpack, wherever. Stuff you might need to make that walk home after a large earthquake a little less painful. You have props sitting there. But again, they walk away with the list of what they should do. They can't learn everything and they can't do everything while they're standing there talking to you, but we give them homework to do at home. Prepared city. Couple props. There's a fire truck and a dump truck. And so we talk about how important SDOT is after a disaster as far as clearing the roads, and how important the firefighters are. We can talk about the windshield survey that hopefully you've all heard about. We encourage them not to call 911 unless they truly, truly, truly need it, because that's a big issue after disasters. Prepared communities. This is where the hubs come in. In some urban survival skills fairs, we have encouraged people to walk their audience over to their hub box. This truly is where the hubs are highlighted. Prepared families. We have a to-do list of really smart, low-cost, high-value things that they can do at home to help their household be more prepared for a disaster. And it's things like putting away food and water, but also simple things like what you should do in your bedroom. We spend a third of our lives in bed. Make sure that you're safe while you're sleeping. Talk a little bit about power outage lights, that kind of thing. And so they go home with a to-do list. We do have props. You shake the table and everything falls on the bed. That's how you illustrate the fact that you really need to secure furniture in your bedroom so you don't get hurt in the middle of the night. Prepared neighbors. This is where we highlight the SNAP program that Seattle pushes, Seattle Neighborhoods Actively Prepare. We talk about what you can do with your neighbors. Prepared pets. We usually have a water bowl sitting there. We have a couple stuffed animals on the table, and it's just basic preparedness stuff. Prepared schools. We talk to parents, especially, about what's called a school reunification plan. It is a very tedious, meticulous way to make sure that every child goes home with the right adult, educating parents about what that system might look like and encouraging them to talk to their school so that they understand the plan that's in place for their child's school. Stop the Bleed. Find a Stop the Bleed instructor who sits at that station. They talk about tourniquets, and we have models out there so they can practice packing a wound and putting on a tourniquet and that kind of stuff. But we do encourage them to take a class. Tech hacks. This is all about smartphone apps that could be very useful after a disaster. And many of them, in fact, all the ones on the bottom row, are apps that work even if you don't have a cell phone signal or Wi-Fi. So even if all the cell phone towers go down and there's no power, if your phone has any kind of power and you have downloaded these apps, they still could be useful. Utilities. We have a gas meter, so we show folks how to turn that off. So we talk about utilities and how to manage those after an earthquake. And then water, a little bit how to purify. We give them a handout of how to get water out of your hot water tank and make it drinkable after a disaster. So lots of good information around water. We have done urban survival skills fairs for kids. Personally, I wouldn't recommend these this summer because you don't really want a lot of kids gathering because they're not able to be vaccinated. But I wanted to let you know that we have done this before, and it's a lot of fun and I think very successful. In summary, you can do one table, you can do 17 tables. Volunteers learn as much as the public. They are really, really enthused when they get done. Typically, we will have the volunteers meet earlier than the fair is supposed to open, and we'll walk the volunteers around to all the tables, and we'll give the little elevator pitch, partly so they learn and also so that they know they don't have to answer every question at their table, and they can refer that question down to the appropriate table. Typically, your audience walks away very enthusiastic, but you have to give them homework. It's not enough to get them enthused. You have to give them a job to do so they walk away and hopefully they'll get some of this stuff done. Always, always, always collect emails. Think about doing a follow-up email and do you have any questions? And it's a good way to collect emails and get folks involved in your hub activities. I'm going to summarize the discussion that happened in the meeting. We talked about how there's a sign-up form. It's online, very modifiable to fit your needs. You put out there what stations you want to have in your urban survival skills fair, and under each of those stations, there are talking points. So your recruits have an idea of what it is you want them to do before they sign up. The goal is to make them comfortable enough to take the plunge to actually sign up and help. There are videos that we can link to that so that they, if they learn better through a video, that might help. But our goal is to make them as comfortable as possible and let them know how supported we are trying to make them so they're not out there on their own. That's available. An urban survival skills fair would pair well with a hub grand opening if that's where you are in your hub evolution. You can either have it at the same time or put them 2 weeks apart, whatever. Several hub captains talked about getting a table at their local farmers markets and presenting these skills one at a time at a table. I think that's a fabulous idea. The farmers markets will probably give you space once a month. It probably will not be a weekly thing, which is nice, a little easier for you. But present those skills one a month, Get somebody else to sit there with you and educate your community and engage them. I think it's a fabulous idea. And then don't forget our new hub brochures. They're available in English right now. Cindy has a bunch. I have a bunch. Happy to get those to you. And we will also have those translated into 7 different languages very soon. So, engaging hams in your community. I am doing that this Saturday. So I just want to describe the process, and I have this all written out on a piece of paper so you can do it yourself. Cindy did this already. She showed us how to get hold of our hams. I just put maybe a little bit more detail in there. I've got directions on how to identify them, you know, the website and all that kind of stuff. And then I have an invitation. Oh, you can't see the screen, but anyway, there's an invitation there. You're welcome to take it and change it and make it your own. The purpose of this is just to educate them about the hub and how they could help if they chose to, using their ham radio skills after a disaster. So that's the purpose of this. I'm calling it a ham huddle. Get their email address and then follow up with any kind of events you have going. Like if you do an urban survival skills fair and you want to incorporate the ham station, you know, the amateur radio station, this would be a perfect person to bring out because they're already a member of the community. This is the agenda for the ham huddle. Introduce ourselves, talk about the hub, and then I've actually got radio folks for my area that are talking about real radio things. We're going to print out a map of the ACS sectors because I think that would be helpful to show these ham radio guys when we're talking about sectors, what that means. And then invite them to an ACS meeting to maybe get them involved in the whole ham community. Happy to share all this information and not. GMRS radio test is July 26th, 8 o'clock. The question we're trying to answer for the upcoming test is, if the Maple Leaf repeater was not functioning, could hubs north of the ship canal talk directly to each other, meaning simplex, radio to radio, without a repeater, using the highest power setting? And we have not tried that yet. We have used very low power channels and we have used higher power channels, but we're going to get everybody on the higher power channels and see if we don't get better communication between hubs. So that's the next test coming up. Just throw it on your calendar if you're interested in GMRS radio testing. If you don't know about National Night Out, I believe it was kind of started by the police department. It's to encourage neighbors to get out and have a drink together or potluck or whatever and get to know one another because it reduces crime. It makes for stronger, more cohesive neighborhoods. I think we really need to push National Night Out this year. It was canceled last year because of COVID. A small group outside seems incredibly safe and very, very smart. My personal opinion is encourage people to socialize, but because we get together so seldom as neighbors, for the most part, make sure you make a plan at that time to get together at a later date to start talking preparedness. Invite a Seattle Neighborhoods Actively Prepare facilitator, somebody from the Office of Emergency Management. They will come out and help your neighborhood get prepared. Also, I'm teaching another set of classes starting September 8th. I kind of lined it up so that you get together in the summer with your neighbors, but once school starts and we're back to a more normal routine, let's meet online, have this class. And what I'd like to do is give neighbors a chance to gather together after the meeting. So breakout rooms. My classes are only 30 minutes. They're very short. It's 2 topics, really to the point, and then give people space for a breakout room where they can discuss anything that might be helpful for them as a neighborhood. That's all I have. Our next meeting is Thursday, August 26th, so 2 months from today. I'm going to stop sharing. I want to summarize 2 things that were talked about after we ended the official meeting. Number 1, Seattle has crime prevention coordinators. There's 4 or 5 here assigned to the city, different sections of the city. So you can Google Seattle Crime Prevention Coordinator and get in touch with that person. They're very helpful during a National Night Out kind of event. Another portion of the discussion centered around how Block Watch and National Night Out have fairly racist overtones. So maybe downplay that side of gathering together. Just pull people together, socialize, because we all need that, get to know one another, and then really concentrate on getting prepared. A, it's what we do really, really well. And B, getting prepared, getting to know your neighbors, talking about what resources are available, what skills do you and your neighbors all have. All that is very, very cohesion building. So you will accomplish the same things, and you have the chance of reducing crime in your area if you all get to know one another.